Okay.
So I'm gonna, for the sake of looking, I'm gonna look at you, because you're in the middle.
And Donyetta, again, if you don't mind, as we're live now, likely to the world, if everyone who speaks, if you don't mind to identify who you are, and that way the viewers who are watching on our streaming services will know who you are and what role you play in this dynamic. So if that's okay, go for it.
Okay. My name is Donyetta Bailey, and I am president of the Black Lawyers Association of Cincinnati. We're here today to have this press conference to read our open letter to Prosecutor Joe Deters requesting a third trial. We write to Joe Deters collectively as the leaders of the DuBose family, the Black Lawyers Association of Cincinnati, the Cincinnati chapter of the NAACP, the Cincinnati Black United Front, the Greater Cincinnati National Action Network, the Urban League of Greater Western South Ohio, demanding justice for Sam DuBose by way of a new trial. Justice is defined as fairness, equity, even-handedness, impartiality, objectivity, neutrality, honesty, and righteousness, among other things. And despite what others may say, we have yet to have a trial with these qualities or components. Settling for anything less will be a total miscarriage of justice. During the first jury trial, 9 out of 12 jurors showed explicit racial bias on their jury questionnaire responses by agreeing or strongly agreeing that some races or ethnic groups tend to be more violent than others. Yet they were still allowed to serve as jurors in this racially charged case. The motion to exclude Sam DuBose's marijuana possession was denied, so defense counsel was wrongfully allowed to introduce the marijuana as evidence in the case and put Sam DuBose's life on trial, which was completely irrelevant to the shooting because Ray Tenzing didn't stop Sam DuBose from marijuana possession, and Tenzing was not aware that DuBose had marijuana in the car at the time of the shooting. In addition, during the first and second trial, Ray Tenzing's attorneys were allowed to present 2 videos of other traffic stops involving Tenzing with African Americans to show that Tenzing was not a racist and/or that he was not an overzealous police officer. But the prosecution did not present any contrary character evidence, such as the available statistical data showing that Ray Tenzing stopped more African Americans than any other UC police officer, or other videos that were available about his negative interactions with other African Americans doing other traffic stops, or other issues that he had in his prior job history, which indicated that Tenzing should have never been a UC police officer to begin with. During the second trial, the judge's evidentiary rulings were biased towards the defense counsel in multiple respects. First, Judge Leslie Ghiz excluded defense counsel's expert's animation, but wrongfully qualified him as a video analyst expert, even when he himself testified that he did not consider himself to be a video analyst expert and did not get the training and certificate necessary to be called a video analyst. She then allowed him to testify and provide opinions that were based on the same animation that she ruled was inadmissible at trial, which was highly improper. Judge Ghiz overruled most of the prosecution's objections, but sustained most of the defense counsel's objections. She ruled to exclude the Confederate flag t-shirt, which shows Tenzing's racial animus and explicit bias against African Americans, but allowed the omission of the marijuana found in DuBose's car, which was extremely prejudicial and in violation of Ohio Evidence Rule 403. Judge Ghiz also refused to allow Tenzing's Confederate t-shirt, which he was wearing underneath his uniform at the time he shot DuBose. She refused to allow that to be introduced as evidence, but then allowed defense counsel to make race a central issue in the case by repeatedly stating that Ray Tenzing was not a racist several times throughout the trial, and allowing Ray Tenzing to testify himself that he was not a racist, while at the same time denying the prosecution the opportunity to present contrary character evidence, example, the t-shirt, or the fact that he stopped more African Americans in the community than his fellow officers. And the prosecution also didn't present any videos of other traffic stops involving other African Americans and Ray Tenzing, which were negative. With all of this, the DuBose family and the Cincinnati community has yet to receive a fair trial, and it is imperative that you provide us with one. I trust that as prosecutor, you understand the importance of handling this case in a manner that the public can respect, support, and understand. We also trust that you understand the needs of Sandy DuBose's family and the greater Cincinnati community to obtain closure and walk away from this case knowing that the jury made a unanimous decision. We will not accept that racial prejudice in this community is so deep that the people would rather believe Tenzing's lies instead of what they can see with their own eyes from the body camera footage. Ray Tenzing gave false testimony during the investigation that he was in fear for his life because his arm was caught in the steering wheel and he was being dragged by Sam DuBose's car. But the body cam video shows that these acts never occurred, and he caused the very threat he alleged was presented by abandoning his own training. He does not deserve the same honor and respect we give to our most brave men and women in law enforcement who perform their job with integrity because they treat all citizens with equality and with dignity. This case is not done. The DuBose family is not done. So again, we are asking you, Prosecutor Dieters, that you retry Ray Tenzing and show the community that your office is committed to ensuring that the judicial system works equally and fairly for all people, regardless of their race, color, or creed, even at times when this task proves unpopular, difficult, and daunting. Thank you.
Donyetta, did you think prosecutors in the second trial did a good job? What are your thoughts about that team?
My thoughts are they didn't do everything they could have done. I felt like the motion to suppress the marijuana should have been filed and it wasn't. I felt like that the statistics should have been brought in to show that the police officer had more stops against African Americans than everybody else. And I also felt that they should have brought in other videos to show that he had negative interactions with African Americans, in particular one where he tried to identify and get the driver's license for an African American passenger that wasn't even driving the car. So I feel like absolutely more could have been done in both trials.
Do you feel, why hold this news conference today? Do you feel like this may be slipping away? Do you feel like Prosecutor Dieters may be inclined not to go for a third trial?
I'm not sure where he's at, but we all decided as a collective it's important for us as leaders of all the organizations that we represent to come together to let him know where we stand and what we're requesting.
What kind of conversations have you had with Dieters since this second mistrial?
We asked for a meeting and we've yet to get one, so we haven't had a conversation at all.
Do things that you're the president of the Black Lawyers Association, do things seem odd about this to you, or is this the way, I mean, for those who don't understand the justice system, is this unique, the way this is unfolding with regard to a potentially third trial?
I think it is unique, the fact that we have to have one. I was hoping that we would be able to have a fair trial the first time. But with the evidentiary rulings that we've had by these judges, with all the shenanigans with the jury selection process not being as thorough as I thought it needed to be, I really don't understand why jurors that put on their questionnaire that they believe that one race is more violent than another were allowed to serve. So to me, in that regard, it is unique. We've yet to get a fair trial, and it shouldn't take 3. But if it takes 3, if it takes 4, then we need to do it. We tried Ryan Whitmer, what was it, 6 times? And I don't feel like his ex-wife's life is more valuable than Sam DuBose. So if we can do it for her, we can do it for Sam.
Do you think Judge Ghiz was the right judge for this trial?
Absolutely not.
What about moving the trial out of the county?
I don't know if it'll matter. I think the bottom line is whoever tries this case, we need a judge that's fair and impartial. We need a judge that makes common sense evidentiary rulings, and I feel we've yet to get that. So moving it to another county is not going to change anything if we have a judge that does things like dismiss the Confederate flag t-shirt, but then allow the marijuana and it becomes a sideshow where we lose track of why we're here. We're here because Ray Tenzing shot Sam DuBose, an unarmed black man who was stopped for a front license plate. That should not happen. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if he had marijuana in the car. The officer wasn't aware of that. Doesn't matter how many apartments he had. Doesn't matter if he was a drug dealer. Doesn't matter about his fiance's personal background. What matters is whether or not he violated his training and used more force than a reasonable officer in his like circumstance would have used.
Bishop Hilton, how about we touch base with you quickly? If you'll let the public know who you are. I think we all know in Cincinnati, but for those watching outside, and get your thoughts about this second trial, the mistrial.
Bishop Bobby Hilton, president of the Greater Cincinnati chapter of National Action Network. And we're here, we're standing together as entities, as groups in this city. And we believe that our power is greater as we stand united to say that it's time for a fair trial. We simply have not seen a fair trial yet.
A check of the pulse of the community, the temperature. What are your thoughts? Is there frustration? What does it look like to you?
The community is very frustrated. They are tempered, but it's frustration, great frustration, because we look to the justice system to be fair and just to all, and we simply have not seen that.
Now, I believe is Mr. DuBose here? A gentleman who I don't, is Aubrey? Did not, okay, I wasn't sure, the uncle, okay. Anyone else care to share a few words? Please come forward, just identify yourself. And Joe, Mr. Mallory, would you like to? Come on up, please. Yes, sir. Come closer to us.
Okay, Robert Richardson. I'm president of the Cincinnati NAACP, and I share the same feelings that Bishop Hilton just outlined. We coming together as a community, and we want to see a trial with the result that everybody saw the film, the body cam, and I just can't see how you can see anything else but that Tenzing shot Sam DuBose for no reason. He wasn't in fear of it. He wasn't in danger or anything. He just shot him. He should have stopped him in the first place. And we were looking to have find some way we can believe in the justice system that is fair to African Americans, especially African American males, and for us to have confidence in the system, we need to see a conviction, as Donyetta said, if they have to have 5 trials. You know, they just keep, if they can't get the right juries, I can't see how people can't look at the evidence, look at the camera, look at what happened that day, and come away with nothing else than he's guilty of something. You know, he took a man's life that he didn't have to. Somebody was just driving along down the street on his way to see his family, and this guy ends up shooting, in my opinion, in cold blood.
What do you say, Mr. Richardson, to those who, and you've been around the block for a while fighting for racial justice, for those who say the fact that the prosecutor in Hamilton County indicted a white police officer on a murder charge, maybe that's enough, that's at least moving the ball forward? And there is that voice in the community, even if it doesn't end in a conviction. What are your thoughts about that? What would you say to that person?
Well, I say that the prosecutor should indict anybody that is in a case like this where the evidence shows what he did. I don't think it doesn't matter that he was a white police officer. Whoever it was, if they shot someone like this, the prosecutor should indict him.
And Tom, my response is an indictment is a bare minimum legal standard to get to justice. That is not in and of itself justice for anybody in any case. And I think that's the problem, that type of thinking, that because it's an officer, the fact that we got an indictment is an accomplishment is the problem. Police officers are not God. They are not above the law. We should treat them the same way we treat everybody else when they act like everybody else. And if I committed a crime and I got indicted, no one would say, oh, well, the indictment was enough if I murdered somebody.
So we also want to introduce you all to
Can we bring you up here, Iris?
Sure,
and identify who you are. We know who you are, but for those who are watching elsewhere, please.
Iris Rowley, Cincinnati Black United Front, and part of this coalition here demanding a new trial. We also want to make the media aware that the Cincinnati Black United Front, as well as Al Gerharstein on behalf of the family, has filed a complaint against Officer Hine for her testimony in the second trial against the investigation. And I'd like to read what we believe the incident is. Sergeant Hine was the state's representative as lead homicide investigator on the Ray Tenzing case. She undermined the prosecution case by testifying in response to a defense question that, based on her own experience, training, and education, she thought the shooting of Sam DuBose July 2015 may have been justified. She suggested that the prosecutor ignore her opinion. This testimony clearly surprised the prosecutors, who had spent considerable amount of time trying to offset it through later testimony and closing. An investigation by the Citizens Complaint Authority should investigate this. As you all know, it is part of the collaborative agreement. We are part of going through a review right now, and we expect for the Citizens Complaint Authority to treat officers who commit crimes like everybody else, to be treated like everybody else. So we want an investigation, thorough investigation by CPD on why Officer Hine made that statement.
And a question for you, Iris, or maybe Donyetta, procedurally, I don't know, but I've talked to protesters who've been in front of the prosecutor's office over the past week or two, and they say if there's not a third trial, they would like to see action by the Federal Department of Justice. How would that work? Is that possible?
Whether or not it's possible will be up to Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General and the head of the DOJ, but I think it's certainly appropriate. I feel like in those cases, normally it's hard to prove racial animus. You know that the police officer acted improperly, but you don't have enough evidence to show that the bias or that the actions were taken because of race. But when you have an officer that's wearing a Confederate flag t-shirt underneath their uniform, I think that changes the game. So I certainly think it should be up for consideration, but don't know what he's going to do.
Mr. Mallory, how about you come over for a second? Let us know who you are for the broader world. And question I would ask you is, during those same protests, I have seen it's been a very diverse crowd that has been in support of a third trial. It's not just African Americans. Let's face it, race is an
and justice. Justice has not been served, and until we get a conviction and jail time for the officer, then we will have justice.
And there are those legal experts who say to the prosecutor, you can't listen to the people on the street, you have to look at the evidence, you have to make the decision based on your gut instinct. But there is certainly a voice out here on the street that's asking, How do you think's going through Prosecutor Dieter's mind right now? I know I'm asking you to be a mind reader, but I don't know if it's a tough decision, but it's taken some time to make it.
Well, I hope what's going through his mind is sticking with the truth and doing the right thing. You know, the right thing for this entire community, not just for a certain segment of the community, because a certain segment of the community is always looking for justice and always gets the low end of the stick.
And then there's a word this week of the petition for those who support Mr. Tensing. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's their right. You know, when we talk about the First Amendment, you know, we're out here exercising our First Amendment rights. They have the right to their own opinion. But, you know, I disagree strongly with the opinion that justice was served. As the person stated that circulated the petition, justice has not been served. You know, and we have a system that is slanted with structural bias. And until we address issues where the case is slanted, whether it be the judge or the prosecutor's office, you know, we need to have fairness and justice and equality for everyone.
Great, thank you, guys. Dwight, come on up. Yes, sir. We know who you are, Dwight. But
Dwight Patton, Cincinnati Black United Front. Given the overwhelming nature of the evidence presented by the prosecution and the fact that 2 separate juries have not reached a verdict in a clearly demonstrated case where the pictures apparently are not worth 1,000 words. And the defense attorney, Stu Matthews, in fact, put Sam DuBose on trial. That was not fair, but it played well to certain segments of the jury, perhaps like-minded people who signed the petition in favor of Officer Tensing. So we declare that instead of Sam DuBose being put on trial, and apparently Officer Tensing not having justice served to him, that the American people, in fact, who hang these juries, not just in this case, but around the country, in the face of clear body cam, dash cam, cell phone camera footage, somehow their emotions trump the evidence. So in fact, this third trial is necessary and is in fact a referendum on America, whether it will reach its creed, whether it will live up to its creed of freedom, justice, and equality for all. This third trial will tell us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.